My name's Tim, but online I go by Uego, and uh, I like to,
Tim.
yeah, Tim. I'm a, I'm also like really into like the peripheral space. Like I really like glass pads, and I really like doing like collecting peripherals too and using
Got you.
them. And I play a lot of like Valorant, so I really enjoy. Like I got really into glass pads about a year ago, and I've been like collecting them ever since. So yeah, and then you're like
Awesome.
one of the like coolest, like people in this scene. Like you make really cool products. So I know
I
it's like a
appreciate that. Thank
yeah, because you make like all the like really innovative stuff, and then I had the opportunity to like my class was like, hey, reach out to someone you admire. So I was like, why don't I take the chance and reach out to you? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. That's a cool project. It's
Yeah, thank you.
surprising that they just let you, I guess, reach out to anyone, right? But I don't think about that when making stuff that there's somebody who might be like, hey, I really like this. I wanna make like a whole thing about it for my class. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
I have heard of people saying that they wanted info from me for that, for like a project for school and stuff, but I don't think anyone actually ever called me to interview for that specifically. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So half the questions I'll be telling you are just like are more like English, like my writing class based questions, and the other half are more like questions that I'm more interested in. So yeah.
for
I'll
sure.
just yeah, I'll ask the first question. So when working on projects for like your different brands, what's like the most common form of communication you use to talk to like reviewers, staff members, partners, manufacturers?
So this is split into three different methods. One of them is Discord, because Discord is kind of like the hub for all gamers, and a lot of
Mm,
the reviewers are gamers. A lot of the people I work with are gamers. Even a lot of brand owners, or like retailers all over the world, right? They use Discord as well because they run Discord servers. So I'd say that's the primary method. Um, but there is, of course, email. Email is still a thing.
mm-hmm.
So um, I won't. It's not my primary method, and it's not like I won't send casual stuff via email, but there's still email communication. And then there's things like WhatsApp, which if you're talking to a factory, a supplier, um, sometimes even some of the people that I work with, they might not use Discord, so we talk via WhatsApp. Rarely other methods like Telegram if it's somebody from a country where they don't really use WhatsApp as much, or Discord. So yeah, um, this strangely though, I would say Twitter, well X, DMs is another big one because
Yeah.
almost our entire scene of the peripheral scene is using Twitter, and we have people, creating group chats for the peripheral space, and they're adding everyone that they think is cool. So you end up on a bunch of those. Then you start talking to more people, and you end up just talking to them on Twitter, and then the closest people you add on Discord. So I end up having like some days where I might announce like something, like some product or something. I'll have 50 or 60 new messages, like DMs on Twitter, and then like 100 on Discord,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's those are the two primary ones for what you asked, I think, for kind of
Yeah.
like coworkers and reviewers and people in the industry.
Okay. That's really cool. Thank you. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
So how do you approach writing or presenting an idea about something that hasn't been like done before? Like something I really admire or product that I'm really looking forward to is like the duality, and no one's ever seen like almost a like a modular glass pad. So how do you go about like presenting or writing that idea out to like review to like manufacturers or reviewers?
Oh, so you mean like once I think of, like, after I've already thought about it,
Yeah.
how do I present that to a
Mm-hmm.
factory, for example? Yeah. So in this case specifically, it was a combination because I figured the idea out because they were showing me something completely unrelated. I was on a call with them, and they were showing me something, and I immediately, my brain went to, oh my god, this must be a glass mousepad company creating a base that holds a mousepad, and it's reversible. Like, my mind just went there immediately, even though that didn't exist. And I saw it, And I was thinking, wow, that's genius. I should have done that first, right?
Mhm.
And then I'm like, I'm telling the factory, is that what it is? And he's like, no, dude. He's like, that's just a tray. He's like, that's not related to the mouse pad. And I'm like, wait, oh my God. I just came up with something completely by accident, thinking that one of my competitors did it.
Oh.
Um, and then I was telling him, I was on a call with him, and he is Chinese, but he does completely understand everything you tell him, even if it's like a little bit slower. You have to like, it depends who you're talking to, right? But you can present it in the same way that I would present it to you. I would just tell him instantly, look, I want to make it into a product. This tray just gave me an idea. Can you make it like can you make something like this work? What materials could we be using? And then he starts brainstorming with you because he wants to help you, right? That's how he makes money. You also develop a relationship with this person. Um, the factory owner is luckily the person that I talk to, so there's no one better to talk to, because if he needs any suppliers, he can reach out to anyone and be like, hey, I need this and this and that in this size. And then he gets quotes and estimates for time, how long it's going to take. Everything arrives at his factory. Then he starts testing it, right? And he tells me the result. He's like, no, this one's no good. He's like, let's try that. So actually, the factory owner and then their workers and engineers are the ones doing a lot of that testing at first, right?
Yeah.
They source everything, they test everything, they know what I want. Once they have something that they think is good enough to at least show, either in a photo, video, or sometimes if it's really good, send it to me. That's how we advance. And then from there, I give lots of feedback. I'll
I
tell
see.
them, okay, this glass, for example, um, one side's supposed to be fast, one side's supposed to be slow, and I explain how I want that done, but maybe they don't get it right. And I'm like, no, the fast surface is um, not fast enough. We need to change the surface parameters. The control side is too smooth and doesn't feel controlled at all. I think we need to change that. Yeah, the edges kind of hurt my arm when I use it. I was imagining them to be a bit more, beveled, and you go through an iteration loop, sometimes many times. Uh, I've had times where I've gotten 10 different prototypes, like
Mm.
every 2 weeks, a new version, iteration again and again and again, until you're happy with it. But yeah, the way you communicate it to a factory is the way you'd communicate it to any person. It's basically taking the idea from your head to reality.
I see.
And to do that, you just do it one step at a time. You start with the most important piece, and you ask, "Is this possible?" And I think a lot of people are kind of like hesitant to ask questions or ask for help.
Yeah.
But I think that if some people get over that and they just ask, then they'll be surprised that people are willing to help, and they want to figure out a way to help you as well. And you help some people, they'll help you. The same thing works in a relationship with a supplier and a factory. So you essentially just start doing it until you get good at it. There's no like magical starting point. It's just you're so passionate about it that you just have to get it out there, so you figure out a way, essentially.
It's, that's really cool. Thank you. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
so, so I see that a lot of your companies and you specifically, you're very vocal on social media, like how you mentioned, like you make announcements on products or like you try to get feedback on some of them. How big of a role does social media play in how like you communicate to like your consumers and with your brands? Like, what's the biggest like how does it really like how much does it actually help?
I think social media is pretty much everything, because otherwise I'd be speaking into the void, right? It would
Yeah.
just be me um, talking to myself or to some of my friends. So, uh, look, to be honest, marketing is just as important, if not more important, than the product itself. Um, and the way you market can be honest, but you still have to do marketing, right? Because if you have a great product but no one's ever heard of it, then that's that's not a product, right? That's not a
Hmm.
business. if you have a bad product that a lot of people heard about, hey, that's not maybe that's not great, but it's better than the other way around,
Yeah.
right? So um, marketing is sadly more important. I was always more passionate about the product development side and talking to people and meeting people in the same industry. I'm passionate about gaming. So for me, that's the passion. And marketing was kind of like, hey, you have to do this. And how do I do this when I enter, like, I'm entering a brand new industry that I've never been a part of? So how do I tell people about my new product that I think is really cool?
Mhm.
And the first thing is to design a product that you want to talk about, that you feel passionate about, that you don't feel like you have to bend the truth or stretch the truth, right? Because you're happy with it, you love it yourself. So that's the first step, is make something that you feel is unique, good.
Yeah.
It brings something different. You're passionate about it. And then once you do that, everything falls into place, because making a great product involves a lot of things along the way. It involves, having the right team, putting in the work, using it yourself. Whether it has artwork or some design. I mean, every product has design. That needs to be designed. So once you do all of that, it's kind of like your baby.
Mm.
So if you love it and you take care of it and you're proud of it when it's done, it's very easy for you to talk about it in a way that is like convincing, right? Because it's yours. You know everything about
Yeah.
it. So as soon as you go to social media and you figure out a way to present it, whether it's a video, it's an image, it's or maybe just text, right? It's a post. You're just sharing thoughts. People can see that you care about it, and then those people become your community. And community is the most important thing, because the community those will be the people that support you on
Mhm.
most of your products and on your ideas. They're the ones who will make it so that when you invest all of this money and time into your business, into creating this idea that you bring into reality, you can turn that into an actual business and not just
Mhm.
an idea, right? They're the ones supporting you and buying it. So the community ends up being everything, and you can only get a community nowadays via social media, essentially, because there's not any other way. It's not like the old days.
Yeah.
People don't go to a physical market, right? Or they don't. Almost no one even buys anything from the big stores anymore compared to online shopping. So social media is where you make 95% of your presence known, and that's your kind of like your only way to tell the world about what you're creating and hope that someone will care, right? So
Mhm.
I'd say it's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot about communication within like your manufacturers and how
Yeah.
you handle reviewers. Has there ever been a moment that you had a miscommunication during a product or a project that you were working on, and has it ever affected the outcome of it? And how did you handle it?
Miscommunication. Okay, so that can be a few things, right? It can be something that was due to translation, or if it's not a translation issue, maybe it's somebody misunderstood, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe just your idea wasn't what you thought it was, right? Maybe you assumed something, and then once it was actually done, it was wrong, right? So there's a lot of, you can miscommunicate with yourself sometimes. That's what I mean too. So
Mhm.
so I'll add that as well in there. So to answer your question, yes, that has happened quite a few times, and I think that is the fastest way to learn a hard lesson,
Mm.
um, is to make mistakes like that,
Yes.
because that costs you a lot of money and time, so especially if the product is already made.
Mhm.
Um, you realize, hey, I'm now stuck with this inventory. It was made the wrong way. Um, what do I do with this? So in my case, that's happened with the cloth mouse pad that I was tinkering with a bit too much, and it was pretty much good to go. And then I was like, hey, let's try this one more thing, and then the whole thing became unusable. Pretty much all the fabric that I created for this mouse pad became unusable, and that cost a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I tried to salvage it, and I was like, maybe there's some way to still use it. And after like 8 or 9 months, I figured out that no, there is not a way to use it. So I have to either use it for something entirely different or not use it and cut my losses. And that miscommunication was specifically this one was with myself. It was
Mm.
it's worth trying one more thing for the sake of innovation, right? And
Yeah.
I should have done it on a smaller scale and not to all the entire fabric roll. And in my mind, I thought it's safe because we've already tested it like 3 times, including lab testing. But lab testing and internal testing doesn't tell you as much as real world testing with real people.
Mhm.
And I should have waited for that before committing because those problems only became obvious after like a month or two of real use.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's like one type of miscommunication that can cost a lot is assumptions. It's better not to assume.
Mm.
If you have a way to check, always check.
Okay.
The second thing is, uh, sometimes factories get things wrong. Actually, they get things wrong all the time. They mess things up. They send you something and it's perfect, and then you're like, hey, make this thing now thousands of times, right? That's a little bit of a different process when they have to do that compared to sending you the sample. So that's why I've always enforced like, hey, make at least 50 to 100 of those so I can see how that scales. But even that's not a perfect process because I've made 50 mouse pads before and they were great, and I sent them to all kinds of reviewers and people who swore they would be honest with me, and nobody flagged a single issue. And
Mm.
then once it was time for it to come out for the product, I was confident in it because all the samples I've tested were perfect. I sent 50 to other people that I trust. They were like, yeah, it's great. So once it came time for release, suddenly you hear problems from people. And you're
Oh.
like, well, how is that possible that it's so much worse than I expected? Oh, well, this happened during production or that happened during production. Well, how could that have happened? If that didn't happen before, what caused it to happen? Why? How do we deal with that better next time? And that's that's a lesson you have to learn every time. Is that first of all, there's not always a way to control that. Every factory ever in any product in any industry will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Some will be big, some will be small. Companies like Mousepad companies and mouse companies deal with inconsistencies all the time. Batch to batch variants, where the meaning like from one batch of products to the next, something will be different. Some parameters will be different, and most people won't feel it. But if it's bad enough, some will. They'll be like, "Hey, this feels different than the previous product. Isn't that supposed to be exactly the same?" Like that kind of question.
Yeah.
That's usually not the company making a change on purpose. That's the factory making a mistake and like basically not disclosing it because it's within their tolerance, within their acceptable tolerance.
Mm.
So you as a brand, or as a person, you can't know that unless you check every single batch of every single product and test multiple versions of it that are already produced, right?
Mhm.
And then what do you do if it's already produced? Do you throw away all that stuff? Or do you discount it, or do you tell people, hey, this one's different than the previous one? Or do you stay quiet about it, and then if nobody notices, cool? Yeah, these are hard questions because
Yeah.
uh, like it, technically, if the product is still in great condition and it is exactly what you said it was, and it's the exact same material, same size, same specification, it's not defective, right? Nothing's wrong with it. It's just different than the original sample you had in terms of how it feels. But it still fits the description you have on your store and what you told your followers. It's still correct, but it's just not the same as the
Yeah.
original sample. What do you do then? That's a very hard question to answer because the thing you fell in love with is not exactly the same as the thing that's now on the finish line.
Mhm.
So you have to think sometimes. You say, can I sell it and feel good about myself? because you try it yourself. You try the finished version yourself, and you're like, do I still love it? Can I still talk about it in an honest way? If the answer is no, you have a hard decision ahead of you. It's do you sell it at a discount? Do you maybe sell it to someone else? Tell them, hey, I have a great glass pad you can buy from me, and I'll give it to you at a discount because I can't use it.
Mhm.
Do you repurpose it for another project? Do you just tell your followers, hey, it didn't come out exactly, but I'll still sell it just at a lower price? Like, you have to figure out a way, or do you just discard it and cut your losses, right? Which I've done a few times.
Mm.
So you kind of have to figure out what to do, because miscommunications and kind of like assumptions, I guess I'll attack that on to the miscommunication. It's miscommunication goes alongside assumptions. They cost a lot of time and money. It's always better to be patient and to wait. Even if you promise someone something and you're late, just say you're going to be late, because if you rush something, or if you make an assumption that turns out to be incorrect when it comes to producing a product, that is a much bigger issue than just waiting longer or making sure you get something right.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah, but you still can't always help it. So
Yeah, that's like that's a lot of it's a I never really thought about it like that. It's really interesting. Um,
yeah,
so going
it's
back to feedback, how important is like you mentioned that there's like some you got feedback from people and they said it was all great, but how important is feedback from reviewers and your community itself? Like when you release a product and you get feedback on it, is there do you ever like on batch two, do you ever change something about like on the next drop, or do you just take that feedback and try to implement it to like a newer product that you plan on making?
uh well, so there are two parts to this question. The first one is feedback is usually useless.
Mm,
In the sense that if you already know what you want and you know how to get it done, and it's a fairly straightforward process, and then you get it in your hands and you say, yes, I love it, and then you give it to a few people and they go, oh no, I don't like this, I don't like this, but you still like this. So what does that mean for you in terms of feedback, right? That's just
mhm.
preference, right? So things that can be filed away as preference should not really be taken into account in terms of feedback unless it's overwhelming, to the point where, let's say you have 50 people and all of them say, I don't like the feeling of this, and then you say, I do. Then you might have to think about it, right? You're like, okay, if that many people don't like it, there must be a problem here, something that I'm not seeing. But otherwise, usually, it's if it's just preference, you kind of trust your gut, right? You're the
Yeah,
creator, you're the one who's gonna have to live with this being released out there forever. You trust your gut. But because most feedback is useless, doesn't mean obviously that all feedback is useless. Because sometimes somebody flags something that you genuinely missed.
mm,
Uh, like, hey, this is this supposed to be like that? It's all you get all these kinds of questions, and you realize, well, no. And that either goes back to what we talked about with the miscommunication and assumptions. Sometimes it's that. Other times it's something you may have missed or didn't think about. People use different things. Like if we're talking about, like, let's say a mouse, people will use different grip styles. They'll have different mouse skates, sometimes from different materials. They live in different conditions with different humidity levels and temperatures. Their skin is different, the way that it feels, like in terms of like their sweat, and their sweat can be more acidic or less acidic. Their skin can be more oily or less, and all of those things greatly affect, the interaction between a mouse, a skate, and a mouse pad. So specifically when it comes to peripherals, it's actually a really complicated relationship compared to everything and almost anything else that you can think of.
mm.
It's a very, very complex relationship that people think is simple. But feedback can only take you so far because of the amount of variables that exist. Uh, almost everyone will have a different opinion, right? So you have
Yeah,
to be able to separate opinion from problem, or like constructive feedback that you can act on. But you do get that constructive feedback when you send it to enough people. Most of the time, you'll get something usable back that you can either implement into this very product, if it's not already done, you can use that to iterate and to make it better. Or, like you said, if it's too late, but it's something not that big, you file it away and say, oh, this is something I'll incorporate with the next version, right? Or the next batch.
Yeah.
If it's not something too important, I'll just include it in the next list of improvements. But yeah, the most important feedback comes from yourself and from a few people that you trust. And those few people that I trust, I usually make sure that they are in different conditions than I am.
Mm.
I want them to have a different environment, a different grip style, different games that they play, so that everything is immediately highlighted for me. Because I live in a pretty dry and cold environment, so everything is like optimal, right, from my end. And then as soon as I give it to somebody who lives in a more tropical climate, right, it's really humid, it's hot, they might tell me, hey, this doesn't feel as good when it's humid, but your previous prototype did. So you changed something that makes it worse for me in these conditions. And then I go, okay, let's look at what I changed. I find out what it likely is, either revert that or address it, then send it back to them, and they go, great. Now it has all the improvements from the previous prototype, plus the original feeling that I liked from the very first one. Now this one's perfect, right? So
Yeah.
there is a benefit to this kind of like loop, the feedback loop and the iteration cycle. They go hand in hand. The thing that sucks is actually going back to miscommunication, is that sometimes factories will not remember all of these things that you're doing because you're doing so many cycles, and they might accidentally release your very first prototype as the final version in final production.
Mhm.
That's actually happened before. That's a true story.
Wow. Do you
And then
mind
you're
if
like,
I
wait, I did 7 iteration cycles, and then they just used the spec for the original prototype in the final version after it was already, and I only found out after it was already done, because how else could you know, right? It's not, you're not
Yeah.
there looking at the spec, but then you learn to say, hey, this is the final spec, double check. Like, I'm annoying about that now. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, you can go ahead and yeah, add that, no problem.
Do you know what a product do you mind if I ask what product it is, or would you rather keep it say?
Well, it was surprisingly, it sounds like it might be um funny now to some people. Um, but it was actually for the Beast glass mouse pad.
Oh, the bees.
Yeah.
I
So
love the bees.
yeah, I already love the first prototype that I got, but I did do a few iterations, like
Mm.
5 to 7. I forget because I was working on multiple GlassPad projects at the time, but it was something like 5 to 7 iterations where I would get back and I would tell them, no, this is not good. I'm like, send it back. No, this is worse. Okay, another one. And I'm like, nope, your first one was still the best. So I'm like, but I still think it can be better. And then we finally got to one where I was like, oh, wait. I'm like, this one. I'm like, this one like doesn't stick to my skin. It's the fastest thing I've ever tried. And I'm like, what did you do here differently? I'm like, did you? I'm like, I can tell that the surface is different, but I don't know why yet, right? Because I was fairly new to glass pads then.
Mhm.
And I was like, can you tell me? So they told me what they did. And I said, okay, can you do more of this and more in that direction? Because I'm a fast learner, right?
Yeah.
I was telling them how I want the surface redone. And I was like, also the edges, can you get them more beveled? They said, well, no, this is what our machine can do. This is as capable as it is with this type of glass. And I said, what if you just do it a little better? And they're like, well, better how? Well, what is better for you? I'm like, well, because the transition from my desk to the pad is sharp. It's like a sharp step rather
Mhm.
than a ramp, right? Rather than a curve. I'm like, is there a way to make it curved, like a more rounded shape? And then they said, well, actually, yes. We use that in other glass applications. It's called a 2.5D
Mm.
shape. And then I was like, yes, this is what I want. They're like, but that will cost extra. I'm like, I don't care. This is what I want. So they do that, and I get it back, and I essentially get what is kind of like the Phantom mousepad, which
Oh,
is, it has those curved,
yeah.
nicely curved edges. It's like a thin glass. It has like a little bit more of a textured surface that's even a little faster, but then when you push down, it has some control. So the Beast was much more similar to that one, but they accidentally went back to version 1. But the funny thing is that version 1 was already more advanced than almost anything at the time. So it ended up working out, but it could have been a disaster. So
Wow.
version 1 is the one that I liked second best from all like 7 versions or whatever. So it
Wow.
ended up luckily working out. And then I tried the version myself after they made the mistake. First of all, I thought that I was going to have to throw them all away because I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not releasing that. And then I tried it myself, and then people were telling me like, "Bro, you're crazy. This pad rocks." And this is why I was sending 50 prototypes to my testers at the time, because
Wow.
those prototypes were actually what was already the final version of the glass that they created.
Mhm.
And I wanted to see how people would react to it if they didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be that way, right? That wasn't my final version. How would they know, right? They just get a glass pad, and then I get honest feedback from all those people.
Yeah.
Uh, some people had similar concerns to the one that I did, to the concerns that I did at the time, and that's why I was iterating on it and improving it. But nobody was saying like that it's a deal breaker for them. In fact, people were saying, yeah, it gets a little bit warm with friction or heat. It's like generating a bit of heat on my skin. But other than that, I wish it was just a little bit more textured. And I was like, yeah, those two things are two things that I fixed, but obviously I can't tell anyone at the time because I'm just getting feedback and I want them to be honest and not give them different info, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're testing something, the last thing you want to hear is, well, there's actually a better version of what you're testing, but I don't have it. So I just wanted to keep it honest and simple. And I got feedback from like 50 people. I would say 20 of them was just straight praise. So there was no point in listening to it. As much like I love the praise personally because I'm like, I know it's a good product and I'm glad people are enjoying it. It might be genuine, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of feedback, it doesn't help you.
Yeah.
Uh,
I understand.
so but the other 30 people, they gave really good feedback that helped shape the final version of the Phantom as well. So I was listening to them, and I agreed with them because I had already tested what was the final version of the Surface I liked at the time. But yes, this this kind of thing does happen. Luckily, though, it was really easy later on to set up kind of like a system for myself where, okay, factories make a lot of mistakes along every pathway. Like in every phase of the production, there is a chance that someone at the factory will make a mistake. They'll write the spec incorrectly, or they'll use the old one by accident, or there will be some kind of contamination on the production line that will change how the surface feels, or the surface won't be properly cleaned before it's put into the box, so it will feel different until somebody cleans it. And you learn all of these things, right? Oh, like the specification you created is actually not good because the glass is too thin compared to its strength. So you need to use a different glass type. Okay, I learned that from next time. Like, if you learn all of these things along the way, you also learn that even if you test with 50 people, that batch might be different than the final batch that is released to the public.
Yeah.
So if you want it to be more honest, you have to say either, hey, those are going to be a little bit different, right? Or you do them at the same time. You do the
Mhm.
final production at the same time as those test units. But then what's the point of doing the test if you can't change it anymore, right? So
Yeah.
you have to make a lot of decisions and learn a lot of things along the way of like saying, hey, look, anyone can make a mistake at any point. So you have to supervise each one and have a system for each step.
Yeah, that's so, like, that's so cool, honestly, like, all the how, like, the beast, like, it turned into the that's really cool. Like, that's
Yeah,
such a
I
such
mean, I think a lot of people noticed, right? They were obviously similar.
Yeah, yeah.
Initially, I was gonna call it the Beast 2.0, but then I wanted a cooler name than that.
So cool. So, um already like speaking to you, I can see that you like obviously you'd love peripherals, but I can see that you have a real like true passion for peripherals, and that's amazing. So what got you into the peripheral? Like what brought you into the peripheral
Uh,
space, and what moment made you decide that you wanted to like make your own companies and stuff and like do stuff like that?
so it's just like being a
Hmm.
gamer since I was like 5 years old, and I'm now 36, so that's a long time of being a gamer. So I've always loved competitive gaming ever since I tried to play Counter Strike and Unreal Tournament, and later on back to Counter Strike, and then Overwatch, and then Overwatch to this day is my game, and it has been since
Yeah.
the beta of the original game for like 10 plus years now. So like I've always been into gaming, and not just competitive, like all gaming. Uh, I grew up playing, um, you know, Rayman and like so many like old school games that
Mhm.
like shaped my love for gaming in general, for storytelling, for
Yeah.
platforms, adventure games, and I've played every single like PlayStation game that came out in the last like 15 years as well. I've always been like deep into like storytelling and art, and um the competitive side of me though is, I think, what actually drew me into making like competitive peripherals, right? What I would
Mhm.
consider competitive peripherals, because when I started to take Overwatch seriously, I realized that playing some of my favorite characters was really highlighting how uncomfortable I felt with some of my gear.
Yeah.
Not that it was like holding me back like crazy. I wasn't tying my rank to my peripherals, but just how uncomfortable I felt on them. I said, like, my aim feels so different from day one to day two, and something about my mouse friction doesn't feel right today. It feels like it's like really heavy, or like another day I'm like, why is it so fast? I can't control anything. I'm missing all my shots today. I'm like, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm just tired today. But
Mhm.
then I realized that it's what I'm looking for is not out there. Like the mouse pad surface I'm looking for is not out there. The mouse, the mouse and mouse skate I'm using is not out there. You know, so for me it was like, hey, can I maybe find somebody who will make the thing that I want?
Mm.
Um, and then you quickly realize that no, uh, you can't, and you have to figure out how to make it, how to get to a factory, how to tell them what you want. Um, and the first attempt was in making the Kurosan Samurai. That was the first
Ooh.
mousepad we tried to make, but that was a task that failed spectacularly, because we've been trying since early 2022, and we went to so many different factories, the ones that we could find in China. That was how we started, is by saying like, hey, look, let's look for manufacturers for mousepads and see if we can find something that feels truly unique and great. And that was a dead end, because when you go to those factories,
Mhm.
they can only give you things that already exist, unless you're willing to tell them to go out of their way and make something unique for you. But then you hit something called a minimum order quantity, where
Yeah.
you have to order a certain amount for them to make it for you if it's a customized, totally custom version. So they told us, oh, no problem, we can make a custom fabric for you, but you have to order the equivalent of about 20,000 mouse pads. And we're like, we can't do that. We want like 600, not
Yeah.
20,000. That's insane. And they're like, well, for 600, you have to use the existing catalog of fabrics that we have for you.
Mm.
Um, so, as a small company, everyone hits that kind of dead end, or, decision where they have to make a decision. Do I just release one of these existing fabrics and just, put my design and logo and box on it?
Mhm.
Or do I try to make something more unique and figure out how to do it? Do I invest more money? Like, well, what is the right solution? So we kept looking, and turns out that the answer for us was in Taiwan, right? Not in
Taiwan.
China. Yeah, so Taiwan is where our factory actually is.
Wow.
located, and they're, the factories that we found there are much more open. They were much more like willing to try and take a chance on a new brand and say, hey, what you're looking for, that's usually like you have to order like 6,500 mouse pads for this, but we see the passion. We'll do it for like 1,500 mouse pads.
Mm.
We'll let you try it. So you develop a relationship with them, you both compromise, and you're able to create something more unique. So it was a combination of like really not giving up on your idea, and also having a mentor, right? So for me, my mentor was Lethal Dylan from Lethal Gaming Gear.
Oh.
He was um, he was somebody that helped me at the start of my journey, that I couldn't have done all of this without. And he was there talking to me since like 2021, 2022. Um, Whenever I had a question, I would go to him. Nowadays, you have AI agents.
Yeah.
He was my AI agent. I'd be like, hey, how do I do this correctly? And he'd be like, oh, you actually do this and that. He's like, but don't forget about that because the taxes in these areas will get you. And I'm like, oh, right, I didn't even think about that. And I'm like, okay, now I'm talking to the factory and they're telling me this. So what does that mean? Does that mean they can't do it, or does it mean that the spec is different than what I expected? But in what way? I'm like asking all these questions, and he explains everything to me, whether it's a fabric specification or uh, like a production issue. Not exactly this story, but something similar is how we ended up releasing our very first mousepad, which was the Kurosan Ninja.
Yeah.
So we couldn't make more than a few hundred pads because you know you need money and you need time and you need knowledge. So what we started with is a pre-existing fabric, but we tried to control as many things as possible and change as many things as possible. How can we change this fabric more? What treatments can we do to it? Um, how can we change this? You know, the feeling of this base. Ooh, what if we add a middle layer to give it a different kind of responsive feel? What if we make it thinner and then add a thicker part in between that is more responsive? Like we were thinking about all kinds of things, and then the surface treatment. How can we make it smoother? How can we make the print look clearer and sharper at the same time? What are our options? Like we were thinking really outside the box, and in terms of the fabric, we said, okay, so no one else used this fabric recently. No, okay. Can we get on a deal on it for 2 years that is exclusive to us, at least, so that it's unique to us, right? We didn't want another brand with the same fabric on the market.
Hmm.
Um, so there's ways to figure out your first steps as a new brand to still make yourself stand out. For
Yeah.
us, it was a combination of design, mixing and matching treatments and experimentation, little bit of luck, right? So, and then persistence. You have to be persistent. You try one thing, doesn't work. You try the second thing. You might be on the seventh thing, and you think it's a dead end. And sometimes that's true, and you should step back. But at other times, if you really believe in something, you might just be around the corner, right? There might be just like
Yeah.
that thing you were looking for is around the corner and it's beautiful, right? So that happens sometimes too. So sometimes persistence, if you're persistent enough, you'll get more lucky more often. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So
So I
just
kind of rambled,
yeah,
but
no,
yeah.
that's good. I like it. I like hearing about all the ideas and all the processes and how unique you want to make things unique. That's really cool. So you spoke about your brands and how you wanted to keep the fabric like exclusive and stuff. But in the long picture, where do you see like Glassworks, Kurosan, and your like own personal brand? Like where do you see each brand heading in the future? Like I know you mentioned that uh the duality will be the last glass pad under Tekkusai, right? So like will like all the glass pads
Um,
shift to Glassworks or
well, actually, it ended up being a bit more complex than that,
Mhm.
because it's true I haven't released a glass pad under my own name in what almost a year.
Yeah.
Um, and and I really wanted the duality to be the last class bet I make, and there's a reason for that that I can't talk about yet
Yeah, I
because
understand.
I um Actually, I can. I think I've said it before on social media. It's because duality was supposed to be the kind of like end game glass pad. So saying it's the last glass pad was kind of like a troll.
Oh.
Because uh, you technically can change you can buy just the glass,
Mm.
and then I can make different types of glass surfaces and sell them, and you just slot them into your existing duality base. So it's a lot cheaper to buy new surfaces that way because you don't have to buy the whole pad, you just buy the new glass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so by last glass mouse pad, I meant like you, let's say you buy the duality, right? And then
Oh.
6 months later, you're like, oh, I want a new surface. I want to try something new. Then suddenly the duality expansion releases, and you have this new double-sided glass that's different than the original one. You can buy just that one for like $50 instead of buying a whole pad for like 100 plus. You buy just the
Yeah.
glass, and then you literally can slot that right into your duality instead of your original glass. Uh, so that's the beauty of a modular glass mousepad. You can replace just the base or just the design or just the double-sided glass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I meant by last glass mousepad. The duality, the name, and the foundation will be the last pad. But under it, I would release new designs and new surfaces
Oh.
constantly.
That that's interesting. That's really cool too. Like the whole like the modular, like you only need to get the one pad and then you it's really cool.
Yeah, and then you buy the parts that you want for it. If you
Mm-hmm.
really want a design, oh, actually, the new designs are only like $30. So you're like,
Wow.
oh, cool. I don't have to buy a whole new glass pad for a new design. I can just replace my design on my duality. Um,
Yeah.
Things like that. So that's the modularity. If something ever breaks, or you lose it, or whatever happens to it, you can replace just the part that has issues because it's three separate parts. Um, so it makes things really easy to repair, easy to expand or replace. Um, Easy to customize, right? Whether it's the
Yeah.
surface or the art, or if one day I come out with a base, then I'm like, hey, there's a new base for duality. It's way grippier, it's thinner, it's more comfortable, it's more durable. At this point, duality, I plan to support it for so long that there's no point for me releasing another pad because I can just do that with duality. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
want, like for example, like if I want to make a surface, why not just release it for duality as like like as a DLC basically, right?
Yeah.
And let everyone who has that pad enjoy it at a cheaper price and less complexity. With one exception, I said I want to make a comeback with the fastest glass mouse pad ever with a unique design and limited edition, so I'm doing that first.
Oh, I see.
So I did make one exception because yeah, some brands were releasing pads that are very similar to mine but faster. And people are like, "Oh, he doesn't know how to make a fast mouse pad anymore." And I'm like, "No, that was never the reason that I didn't release the fastest mouse pads ever. I just thought they were silly." But as my parting gift before I go to duality, I'm just gonna give people a mouse pad so fast that they're gonna think it's stupid, and then I'll leave them with that. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the last thing. But yeah, duality is my focus for sure. I just want to get it perfect, and knowing me, I announce things too early because I get genuinely excited. So people see things like a year before they're released sometimes.
Wow. I was super excited for the duality. I thought that was like the coolest idea ever. That's really cool to see where like you're
Thank you,
at with
thank you.
that.
Yeah, so I'm just in a phase of finding the right base because it was pretty much good to go. I was just like fixing the two surfaces and being like, okay, am I gonna get it perfect this time? And then it's like finally like, yes, this is really good. And then the base, I was like, okay, I can't release this base, it's too soft. I need a more substantial base. But what material will be right in terms of weight and feel and durability and molding to your desk and not hurting your arm when you put a glass pad inside that base and stuff like that. So you have to figure out the perfect material and mold and size and um so yeah, it's a bit of a process, but we're getting there.
I see. I see. Yeah. So just in terms of your like you're like one of the most innovative people in this space, and that's like that's a really I really like that about like all your products and how you like just speak about your products on X or Twitter. So what inspires your innovation? Like where does it come from? Is it like, you mentioned that you had products that were like you played games and you're like, "Oh, I wish there was like this thing or this felt a little off." Like, do you get it? Is it just from your soul experience, or is it like, you see like people that want this type of thing, so then you're like, "This would be a good idea," and then you like go off from that idea?
Uh, I would say it's more my experience, things that I'm frustrated with. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, why has nobody made this? And then that's usually my idea. Or like like let's say I'm using my keyboard and I'm like, oh, why doesn't it auto detect when I go into Overwatch and put it into the correct profile on my keyboard? And then I'm like, wait, I could do that. Or like same thing with my audio. Why can't my audio, my headphones or headset, whatever, detect that I'm in a Overwatch and then change the profile to fit Overwatch, the sound profile. And then when I tab out, it goes back to my Windows like desktop profile. It's like, oh wait, I can make that. And I did with the Lucid app, right? For my IEM. So it's like all these things that I want out there. Just like let me just make it myself because nobody else will.
Mm.
Or same thing goes for manufacturing a product. I want a really smooth surface that has just a little bit of tactility and feedback from the texture, so it's not completely smooth. And I want that to last. I don't want it to start gaining slow spots or feel bad in humidity too quickly. It has to last. Well, what's on the market for that? Well, nothing. And if there is something similar, I always find issues with it because I'm very sensitive to little things. I'm like, oh, this base doesn't feel good. This fabric doesn't actually feel that good with like certain skates, or this doesn't lay flat on my desk, or this design or has no design, or whatever. It's ugly, or it's leaving fingerprints everywhere on the surface. There's something I don't like where I'm like, this can be done better.
Yeah.
So because of that, that really helps. And the third and last part, because those were the first two reasons, is just boredom.
Bored.
Like I get bored of things really quickly.
Mm.
Um, whether it's a product or a whole industry, I have to keep pushing forward. It's like my ADHD, right? I have to keep pushing. I have to keep doing something cooler and cooler than the last one, and I lose track of time working on things. And once they're done, I'm like, okay, it's done. It's time to move on, right? That's how I think. Obviously, these days I support my old products because I still think there's ways to improve them. So let's say I finish the hardware, now I can work on the software and then make that the best combo, right? And once
Mhm.
I think this is clearly better than anything else on the market as a combo, and there's nothing else like it, and I would use this and I have used it, then I file that into the done pile. Now it's done and it's in maintenance mode, right?
Yeah.
So Lucid is done. The IEM released 3 times. The software has been iterated on over 500 hours of work on the software side, and now it's in maintenance mode. If
Mm.
there's a bug, I fix it. If there's a new game that needs support, I add it. But that's very simple. That's like maybe an hour of work every 6 months at this point. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's kind of how I think about things. Does it
Yeah.
exist? Um, no. Do I feel the need for it to exist? That does it annoy me, or can it improve what I do? Yes. Okay, then I should work on it. Um, and then yeah, kind of like get bored because of something is already like out there for too long and there hasn't been any change. Okay, what can be better than that I haven't even thought of, that maybe I would love if I had. And then sometimes it does involve thinking, where I'm like, wait a second, to make the greatest cloth mousepad of all time, all of these things would have to be true. It's a long list of things, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, but no one surface can do all of that, or no one mousepad can do all of those things at once. That's impossible. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but is it impossible? I'm like, is it actually impossible? And then I start thinking about it and breaking it down. I'm like, what's holding back these two parts of my requirements from being able to coexist. And it's like, well, that's what's holding it back. Like I break it down, I study it, and then I'm like, is there a way around it? And then sometimes like, no, there's no way around it. And I'm like, is there a way through it? Like I try to force things to see maybe there's something outside the box that nobody has thought of. And then sometimes one thing will lead you to another. And you may end up in a spot where you've now created something that's a bit different or totally different than your original concept, but it's innovative in a totally different way. And that's okay too.
Mhm.
Because you have to remember that the thing you had a concept for initially, no one knows except you and who you've told. What people see is the final product and the announcement, right? So
Yeah.
you have to remember that. That's a fresh perspective. So how does like sometimes you have to step back and be like, how is this announcement going to feel? If it were me looking at that, how would that feel? Is there anything that I could do better before I announce it or before I keep working on it? So I think about that a lot from my perspective. How would I feel about this type of product, about this type of communication, the type of treatment that I give my customers if there's a need for customer service or not anything? And I think all of that goes into innovation.
Yeah.
Innovating on just the product is not enough. I think it has to be the whole package deal, right? You have to build that community, like we talked about before. You have to gain the experience with communication, miscommunication, assumptions, and all of that, right? Um,
Yeah.
you have to learn um, the hard way what works and what doesn't, and why. Um, and you have to get through the struggles of, you know, sometimes people love you and they say things that you love hearing, and they tell you stories about how your product touched, you know, their lives in a way that mattered, and it's a super happy moment. But other times you just get, hate messages and death threats, and you have to separate the two and realize that not everybody is gonna see everything you do the same way. Um,
Mhm.
and even if it's something as simple as mouse pads, it can cause a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, right, these people are passionate. They're passionate about the peripheral space, and that's the core of my community are those passionate people. So passionate people tend to be more vocal, whether that's good or bad. So yeah, that's I think also important to remember. Passion creates innovation,
Yeah.
because once you're passionate, everything else like downstream is just fueled by that passion, and that's a very strong force because you will never stop until there's no other way to go, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I can also really relate to like the your innovation because of boredom. Like, you want more things, and I totally agree. Like, I love like testing and using different pads because like
It's really fun. It's the only
yeah,
way to
like
describe it. They
yeah.
all feel different. They all
Hmm.
have their own unique traits and characteristics, and it's really fun to figure out what you like and what you don't and why.
Yeah, really, totally agree.
And then by the time you figure that out, there's new technology and new possibilities that change the meaning,
Hmm.
right? So it's like a loop. It's like, ooh, I've optimized for what I think is my favorite, like friction profile and feeling on my skin, like the keyboard and the look and this and that. And then, oh, okay, but 2 years later, there's new stuff. So now I can re optimize.
Hmm.
And then you're like, oh, wait, actually, I've learned that I don't love this friction profile as much as I used to. I actually prefer this combination. It's like, and you're learning new and new things, and you're like, why? Why do I like that? Okay, maybe my game changed, maybe my sensitivity changed, maybe I just got older, maybe I've learned new things. My brain, is interpreting all these things differently now. Or maybe I just like to experiment and I convince myself that I like this more than something else, when in reality it doesn't matter. It's all about what you're used to, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
whatever the reason is, it's a super fun hobby.
Yeah. Shoot. So speaking of all your like companies and how you keep innovating, when you're first starting one of your companies or just in general, like what was like the biggest challenge you faced? when trying to when starting one of your it could be like Kurosan, Glassworks, or your own personal when it's like developing a what's like the biggest challenge you faced and how did you overcome that challenge?
Um, I think it was when a bunch of people were sort of up in arms about the use of AI.
Oh,
This was
yeah.
in 2024.
Mhm.
They were very upset about our use of AI, and this is a complicated, sensitive topic to this day. I think actually today it's even more fueled
Mhm.
than it was in 2024. But um, the way it started is that we were trying to be honest with people before any kind of drama started. So we said with Glassworks, like, hey, look, this is a really cool design, and we made it half AI, half human. So both
Mhm.
are involved. We were transparent about that on social media publicly, on our Discord server publicly from the start. We told people that it was a combination with our original Akari. We have an artist, and we used AI for reference. And we told people that. Some people didn't like it, but hey, at least we told them, right? Like we did the
Mhm.
right thing. But then, we were thinking, why we love working this way. Our artist is cool with it too. They get paid in full. Like that, we love working with our artists. To this day, we work with the same artist. Um, we were thinking, hey, what about for the next release? Let's not keep it that close to the original AI generation anymore. We'll make it inspired by it, but new. And like
Yeah.
the artist can have more creative freedom. It will be more fun. And we did. And that's why the Kazumi looks quite noticeably different than the Akari in terms of quality. It looks like a refined version of that art style.
Yeah.
It's because the artist took a lot more creative liberty, and because it wasn't like a tracing or kind of like an direct interpretation of the original AI reference. So um, they had a lot more creative freedom. It took months to do. It was beautiful. We all loved it.
Yeah.
But then as time went on, we started to utilize more and more of the artist, and the AI became more and more of a reference. So we stopped talking about AI. We figured, hey, it's pretty obvious. We also took steps to make it more human. A human is paid. It's a real artist finishing all
Yeah.
of these, so there's no need to bring it up
Mhm.
anymore. And
Yeah,
then I was even fighting some people who were saying like, "Hey, this stuff is AI." I'm like, "Well, that's not exactly true. There is some AI used, but it's like not like the final output is made by a human." And then people were saying like, "Hey, you're lying. We can see that it's AI." And then we sent proof. We started uploading the artist's drawings like in real time, like a time lapse of his drawings, but even way back in 2024 into 2025, right?
yeah.
So people are like, "Oh, this is really cool. Thanks for providing that. I'm glad to hear there's an actual artist." But then there was this whole drama where somebody essentially found our Mid-Journey account at the time, and they
Oh.
were like showing all of these generations, AI generations that we did in order to kind of like get the original look of the design. And Akari in particular was very similar to the final version. Just it clearly looks like the original that they posted. Obviously isn't the same as the final one, but you can see like the heavy inspiration.
Yeah.
And that got a lot of people upset because they felt cheated, they felt upset, they felt like we didn't communicate it properly. Some of that was on us, even though we did talk about it on social media. Some of the communication was off. For example, one of our interns at the time said that this is like 80% human, 20% AI or something like that. So he gave very specific percentages for some reason to some people, when in reality it was not. It was like 50-50 or like 60-40 in favor of the AI for the first Akari. But things like that got us in trouble because they're like, look at that. They're claiming it was almost fully human, LOL, scum, liars, cancel them. We don't need that in our space. Um, and it got really, really bad. That's where some of those death threats started and people wanting to cancel us, and they're saying like, you have no artist, it's all AI slop, like this is really bad. And then all the hate started to flow, and I would see even bigger and bigger names, accounts with like 200,000 followers, quote tweeting that, saying like, and this is why only people with real passion and talent should create brands and not just guys wanting to make slop. And all of that sort of controversy at the time was painful to see because that's so far away from who I am as a person. And I just wanted to comment on everything. Like, we do have a real artist, we do pay real artists. This is just a way I communicate to them what I want out of a design by sending them a reference. Like, it's all done by a human. We would never get rid of our artists in favor of AI. We love working with artists.
Mhm.
Like, I wish I could communicate that to everyone at the time, but I just sat back quietly and said, I'll let this kind of like storm pass.
Yeah. But I mean, I love all the Glassworks designs, so I don't know. I think
Yeah,
yeah,
I do
yeah.
too, and I love our artists for how they interpret, all of my sloppy AI references. And I'm like, hey, can you do this in our Glassworks style? And they're like, yeah, it takes time. It takes them sometimes like 3-4 months to finish a design. It's not easy. They're very, very intricate. And I even tell people like, have you ever seen an AI image blown up if you zoom in really, really closely? Have you ever looked at an AI image like that or no?
No, I haven't. But
You haven't?
no, I haven't. Like I.
Okay, so try to get an AI image from multiple sources, whether it's the newest ChatGPT or the Google's Nano Banana. Like, just go to the latest, greatest models, make the highest resolution image you can for any kind of image, and zoom in. It's it's a it's hard to describe how bad it is. It's a monstrosity, essentially. If you really zoom in, there's artifacts, there's pixels that clearly look like warping, and shapes don't make sense, and then you know the companies themselves leave trails behind that it's AI. Like, in like the pixels themselves are like tagged, basically. So any detector tool from their end can tell if AI was involved. So there's a lot of signs to tell whether something is AI or not.
Mhm.
But in our case, we if you look at any of our images, if you just zoom in, the lines are very clearly drawn by a human. Like, you can zoom in anywhere on the image, and it's very, very clear that there's no AI, not on the Kazumi, not on the Hana, not on Zane, not on our next release, obviously not on the Polarity. You can see that it's drawn. And if you ask an AI detector of any kind, it will tell you that it was drawn by a human, that it cannot detect AI because the final output doesn't have AI. And the only exception was the Akari, which we said specifically at the time was a hybrid between AI
Mhm.
and and human art. And then afterwards we said, hey, you know what? We don't want to do things like this anymore. We're only going to use AI as reference, right?
Yeah.
So that's when we had a change of heart. That was way before any of the drama. That was our own understanding of what's right, what is the morally right thing to do. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say to this day hurts, is seeing
Yeah.
still comments about that, and misinformation of people saying, oh, tech doesn't even have any artists. He only releases AI. He just does AI images, puts them on a pad and releases it, which is really strange because if he's so innovative, why would he take such a shortcut on his art instead of paying real artists? And it's like,
Mhm.
every time I see that, I'm like, this is it's just a lie
Yeah.
to say that. It's a complete lie. I would like to say it's a shortcut. First of all, yeah, that is a shortcut for me to communicate to my artists, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to sit there and write 100 pages to let them know exactly how the art should look, and then go back and forth and back and forth 5,000 times more than we already do, just to get the image that I want, when I can show them a reference. That's what references are for. Back in my day, we used to do that with Pinterest,
Yeah.
or Google Images. You'd go into Google Images, you'd find some references, you'd send that to your artist. Now you can just describe what you want, do it a few times until it's close enough to your idea, and then tell your artist, here's the reference, and now you give them just like a few sentences about what you want, and from there you iterate. They redraw everything, and you're like, oh, okay, no, I would want this a little bit different. His sword, I don't think his sword is, should be that, that pointy or whatever. The sword is too wide, or like the dragon's head doesn't look right compared to his body. The colors don't pop out at me. Let's change the contrast. Oh, the composition. The dragon looks too big relative to everything else. It's kind of, but all of these details that you talk to the artist, iteration after iteration, just like working on the product, working on art is the same thing. It's an iterative process. But the artist loves it too. Then the other part of the critique was, well, if he has an artist, why won't he just name the artist? That would solve all the problems. It's because there are a lot of people that sadly kind of like follow me everywhere I go. And what I mean by that is, one time I worked with an editor that made a really cool video for the HANA, and I posted about him online, like on Twitter. And he got 15 DMs from brand owners trying to copy that style for themselves. So I said, never again. I'm never doing that again. People that I work closely with, I'm guarding them. I'm not telling anyone about their name. Instead, I'm just paying them to work with me.
Yeah.
And that's it. So people ask, why don't not just name the artist? Well, for us, the artist is not the same as for some other brands, because those other brands work with a different artist every time or every 2 times. We work with the exact same artist every time. That is our style. I don't know if you know, but the artist that made all the Koro-san designs is the same artist that made all the GLSSWRKS designs,
Wow.
who is the same who made all of the Tekkusai GlassPad designs.
Like
All
that's
3 brands are one artist, and he also made all the logos and website designs for all 3.
wow. That's really that's really cool because his range of style is actually incredible. I'm not like
Yes, he's insane,
yeah.
and he is an incredible person to work with. And he even said to me, he's like, Tech, thank you for saying at the time that you will not name me because you don't want me to be involved in this AI drama. He's like, at the time I didn't understand it, but now after seeing all this hate, I do, and I'm sorry you have to go through it.
Mm.
And that was a big reason. I didn't want to involve an artist. I said, you
Yeah.
know what? We should take the hit. If anything is ever going to happen, we should take the hit, not our artist. I don't want our artists associated with that kind of stuff. Like his name and his mental, getting messages and from people who are hating on him and stuff like that. There's no need for that. So for me, like, we can take it, if somebody tells me like, hey, slop, no art, taking shortcuts, sleazy salesman, go pay an artist, stuff like that, I can either ignore it or respond to it and say you've fallen for misinformation and explain why, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want our artist to deal with that. Yeah, I don't think that's fair because he never asked to be involved with this process that involves AI.
Mhm. It's really interesting to see like the whole like design process and how you handled all the backlash and how you handled it well, in my opinion. So
Thank you. Yeah. So that was kind of like the only like fumble, I guess, is not to from the beginning, not say 80-20% from our intern. And maybe some people said you should have been more transparent about that on your website, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it. Oh, it kills the magic, things like that. Some people, it hurt them in a different way.
yeah.
But I think now that people understand, hey, there is an artist, he's shown that multiple times, and his process is just his process, but they're realizing that it's not black and white. There is a lot of gray area, right?
Yeah.
It's not either you use AI or you don't use AI, and if you use it, it's bad, and if you don't use it, it's good. There's so much in between. It's a spectrum, right?
Hmm.
And I think my question was, I want to be safely behind the line that crosses that moral territory for me. What does that mean? Well, I want an artist to be paid. That's really important to me. I want a human to be involved. I want the final output to be human, regardless of
Yeah.
what the source was. I want the collaborative process. I want the iterative process. I want to go back and forth with an artist and improve and work and bring a vision to life. Even if that vision started with an AI reference image from Midjourney, who cares?
Yeah.
That's how I see it, right? The whole process is still there. Even if some of that magic is gone for people saying like, oh, he just uses AI to conceptualize his original idea, then he works on the art with the artist. That's not as cool as I thought. That's fine. I don't mind being open about those things. If you don't find something cool, you don't have to like it, right? Like it's your choice. But the point is, I love working like that. It genuinely inspires me.
Mhm.
I love seeing an idea come to life in a pretty ugly looking form from the AI, but it's there. I can see through it. I could see what it can become if an artist takes that idea and turns it into something real. So I already see with that lens, you know what I mean? When I'm
Yeah, no,
seeing like
totally
the
get it.
AI output, I know what it's going to look like one day, a few months from now,
Mhm.
when an artist finishes making it from scratch. And for me, that's beautiful. A person is working on something that they really like. They're getting paid, making a living out of their passion. And I always tell them like, hey, if you don't like a project, like a style, tell me, because I want my artist to love what they're doing. So I always ask him, I'm like, do you like this? And sometimes he's like, it's not exactly my style, but I can try something different. And if he doesn't seem into it, I'll be like, well, let's try something else. Like, and I'll give him more ideas until he's like, I really, really like this. He's like, it's actually giving me ideas now. I'm going to start working.
Mm.
Like, when I hear that from my artist, that something that I gave him inspired him to work, like an idea in him, and he wants to start working, that's when I go, okay, I'll leave him alone. I'll let him work on that. Because it's just as important to me that my artist is inspired,
Yeah.
because if he's inspired, he's going to make greater work. Because remember what we talked about earlier, passion. It's all like
Mhm.
everything downstream from the passion is going to be better. So you want the people that you work with to be passionate about what they're doing, no matter how small the task is.
Yeah.
So that the same is true for art, of course. So yeah, people don't realize how delicate that process can be, and how much there's so much more work involved than they think. And the only shortcut is because I can't draw, I have to
Yeah.
somehow show him what I want. That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, I get that. Uh, okay. I think I have time for two more questions. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Um, this will be just a okay, this will kind of be like a wrap up question. I have just one personal question that I won't. But what advice would you give to someone trying to break into like the tech space in terms of like how like what would you like? It was almost like a question like what would you say to yourself like couple like before you started this, and how would you say they should like communicate them or like present themselves in this space? Like what do you think the biggest way to present themselves professionally and well?
I think letting your passion come through,
Mm,
and being transparent and being respectful. Everyone that is either in a higher position than you or in a lower position than you treat everyone the same. Um, you treat them with respect, with transparency, and you show them, your passion of why you want to do what you do. And if you don't have that passion, just don't do it. It's not worth it. There's a million other things you can do that you'll be happier with. Only do this if you're passionate, because 98% of the time you'll be doing things that you don't want to be doing. People think that my entire job is testing mouse pads. That is like 2% of my job. Um, every day is filled with talking to suppliers and warehouses and freight forwarders and um, patents filing and talking to the lawyer and talking to retailers and handling their invoices and doing Shopify backend and talking to my website guy and paying fees. And Then there's the big company taxes, business administration, talking to customers, customer service, managing my employees. Like there's so many things that people don't think about. I can work 14 hours a day and still have work left to do at the end of those 14 hours every day. It's endless. It's an endless loop. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you is be sure that you're passionate about this and that you can see yourself being passionate about this 15 years later as well.
Mhm.
Because it's a commitment.
Yeah.
But
I
if
get that.
if you if people can hear in your voice that you're passionate about that, everything else will fall into place. It goes back to the same thing I said. So that's how you treat people in this industry. It's like any other industry. It's basic respect um, and then transparency and passion. Because I don't like to play games with with my retailers and
Yeah.
my suppliers. I tell them like, hey, this product's costing me like $40 to make. I'm gonna sell it to you for 50. It's not a lot of profit for me, but I think that's fair. I can make a bit of money, and you can sell the product at a good profit for yourself, and the customer is getting a good price.
Yeah.
So I'll be transparent with them, and they'll acknowledge, and they'll know that that's a lower price than what other companies give them. But
Mhm.
you can only be transparent like that if you're honest with them and you're honest with yourself, and
Mm.
you know that you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
So for mine, I know that my prices are fair to retailers and to customers, so I'm able to be transparent about that.
Yeah, that's
If I wasn't able to be transparent about that, then I would know I'm doing something shady.
yeah, the insight's really amazing and really awesome, you know, and I appreciate you like sharing all this.
Yeah,
But
no problem.
but yeah, I'm really out of time, so I have to get going. But thank you so
Oh no,
much
no, yeah, that's perfect. I was pretty much done. So
yeah, so I have to get going. Thank you so much for taking your time to like do this with me. It means a lot.
yeah, no problem, man. And yeah, thank you for calling and for the questions. They were actually super interesting for me
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
to think about and reflect on. Because now I'm like re-inspired to go work for the day.
you. That means a
All
lot.
right.